Yeah, you can keep going, Jeff. And actually,
Okay.
why don't, I'll give you a quick introduction here. I'm sorry we had to scramble, guys. I somehow our marketing team grabbed an old email or an old Zoom link, so I really apologize if you had trouble finding it. But I think we got everybody on here. We got an awesome group here today. Thanks everybody for being here. And I think that this really, I'm super excited about this. Jeff has been doing some really cool, unique template stuff. I have been of the opinion that Steve has built us this really creative tool that we can use. And nothing excites me more than watching scribers take this tool and use it in ways that like suit how their brain works, right? I mean, we all work differently in this business, and it's just so cool to see people take it and run with it. And all of the scribers that have been with us have done this, and I would like to continue to showcase what different people are doing with different things. And Jeff was showing me some of his things, and I was like, this would be a great kind of launching of what we're kind of trying to work towards is this idea of a mentor's marketplace where templates could be available, where we can share resources. And to me, it all reflects the way I remember this business when I started 20 years ago, when, I learned from a mentor, and that was who taught me the ropes and taught me all this kind of local knowledge. And one of our challenges being Scribeware that I've felt is that it's you drive 70 miles and it's a different business, right? And so we're trying to kind of start building this community in this way. And so super excited to have Jeff share these ideas with us. We will record this and I'll put it up on the forum. So, if you like some of these ideas, you could start implementing them in your own template. And if you have questions, how the Scribers Forum on Facebook would be a good place to reach out, and you can reach out to me and I can probably help show you. I mean, Jeff's doing things that I don't know how to do in certain ways. Like I kind of mostly get how he's put this together, but so I'm happy to all kind of work together to kind of figure out how we can help everybody get their templates tweaked out. So I already love how clean and simple your chapters are, Jeff. This is really a breath of fresh air. It's great. So and Jeff is a home inspector for about 20 years or more, I believe, in the kind of
Yeah.
Illinois, Indiana area.
Illinois.
And Illinois, and he's a instructor in that region as well.
Mhm.
So super excited to have you doing this, Jeff. Thanks so much for taking the time to share this with us. It's awesome.
Thank you.
So give you the floor, man. My voice is
Yeah, and
shot, so I
I
don't
think
feel I
that
don't have
I'm
to talk.
getting things up there that say people are waiting in the waiting room. So I'm
Yep,
not
I'll
sure
let
if
him
it's
in here.
cool. So these buckets, I call them photo buckets. One of the things you're going to hear me say a bunch of times is you'll hear me say the global category. And what I mean by that is what's nice about this, if you don't love the way this bucket looks and you want to change how this bucket looks, if I make a change to this, it's actually going to change this in every single one of my sections because this one is a global comment. So my global comments, those are the same in every single section. And what's convenient about that is I don't have to change a bunch of different comments in different sections. I can just go ahead and fix this one and it'll fix it in all of them. So that's nice, but also you want to be careful about not putting everything in global. So the reference photos are global. The concerns noted are global. Those are going to be the same in every single section. Personal items, that's going to be the same in every section. When I get down to obstructed view here, which these are personal items are normal obstructed view, this obstructed view is I'm a suspicious one, okay? In the structure section, I'm not using the global one for this. I'm using a different one for structure because I want this bucket to look different in structure because that's a more concerning issue when I have an obstructed view there. The common element one, that's the same in every section. This one, this one's the same. This is just if the customer told me not to inspect something. And this bucket, this one's different in every section because this is a list of exclusions. And that's why this one's huge. Now, all of this stuff is, you can just uncheck or check the boxes you want to check, right? And if you change those and hit the red dot, then it saves it, and that's how it comes up. But this not inspected one is different for electrical versus plumbing. All the different sections, this one's going to be different. So The other thing is these do not take up a lot of space. So I'm just going to go ahead and open the ones that I want to open and not open the ones that I don't want to open. And that's it. The other thing I want to show you is all of my comments have this. So you've got this title across here. If I double click on this, these icons end up going in that title nice and big like that. So this is something, possible association issue. The reason why I have that as a tag, as an icon that I can pop in, is because I don't want to have association comments built into every one of my narratives. I don't want to have to put that in all the time and double click. I can just go ahead and change it here. So I can take a normal comment that I have and turn it into, hey, this is really an association thing. This is not part of the inspection because it was a condo. So let me undo that. So property type, single family detached, everything's fine. If we're doing a townhouse or a condo or a multifamily or a commercial or a mixed use or a limited partial, what I want to get in here is I want to put in a statement, and that's why I'm using this due diligence for the modifier. I want to put something in here that tells the person that I'm only what I'm inspecting and what SOP I'm inspecting to, right? So if I'm doing a commercial inspection, but I'm inspecting it to the residential standard, that's what I'm putting in. So let's click here. What I'm letting them know is that I'm not really doing a commercial inspection, right? I'm really doing a residential inspection on a commercial property. And if you do something different, that's fine. But if you're using a residential template for a commercial property, then that's a good thing to go ahead and get in there. This I have set up to automatically go in because I do send the contract to every single client beforehand. So I just want it to say before inspection. So that's just automatically populated. I do note about when I got the contract signed. So year of construction, what I'm doing with new construction here, the reason this is blue and not orange is that's actually putting in a note that's for me, which is why it says inspector's notebook. It doesn't go in the report. This is just links to building departments. So if I'm doing new construction, that's what I want to.
That's awesome.
That I just want to have those links, like the Chicago Building Department. I can just click on this and look up permits.
And Jeff, leave that up for just a sec.
Oh,
can you get that back up again? See how you guys, this is an important thing where it says not included in report with the question mark. So that's if you have built an inspector note wittingly or otherwise, if you see that, what that means is that is an inspector note. It will not print in the report. And it can be, people are like, why do you do that? And it's like, well, so you can plant all this really useful information for yourself in the report. And this is to me, a really nice example of, automating, having the information that you need at your fingertips. Great.
So
great
I have two different qualifiers just to tack on to exactly what Dylan was saying. I have two different qualifiers that don't go into the report at all. And the reason I have two is because if I put something in inspector's notebook, which is this bright green folder, if it's bright green like that, that information is for me, and that's why it didn't go in the report. There's no problem. I just wanted the diagrams, or I wanted to look at the law, or whatever I wanted to look at. I have that reference material here. So this is my own reference materials. That's what it's for. And if I was to toss a photo in here, which I could, that would be for my own storage, for my own reasons. That would have nothing to do with the report directly. That's different from this bright blue qualifier at the top. I'm using the bright blue qualifier at the top, further investigation required, for something that doesn't go in the report, but it's not okay. I don't want anything to stay further investigation required. I want to get rid of those. So if I was to see a water heater, on-demand water heater installed that I've never seen before, and I don't know if the gas line's the right size or not, and I'm not ready to talk to the customer about it, What I might do is pop it in this further investigation required, take a picture of the model number so I can look up the install instructions later, take a picture of the gas pipe, maybe with my measurement device on there, and I'm checking to see, is that half-inch gas pipe okay for this huge on-demand water heater? And I would mark that as further investigation required with this bright blue, because I'm making a note for myself which items are that way. These are items that I don't feel comfortable talking to the customer yet, or if I am going to talk to the customer, I'm going to use a lot of wishy-washy words because I have no idea whether or not this is a problem. It's something I want to look up. The other way I can use further investigation required is if I have another inspector working for me and he is not the one doing the inspection, I'm doing the inspection, but he's with me. And he or she, if they put stuff into the report, I might tell them, put everything in as further investigation required because I need to look at that before we leave. And I can just scroll through here looking for the purple ones and check everything that person put in. And if I didn't already put it in or didn't get a photograph of it, then I can investigate it before I leave the property. So I'm using this as a flag, really. I'm using this like the flag field. So let me put this back the way it was and knock that out. If the property is older, and the reason I broke these out this way is because if you just make a huge list, this doesn't go well on mobile. So on mobile, if I list every one of these, then you have to scroll through this entire list. This breaks the post 2000, post 1986, post 1987, post 79. The reason I picked those dates is because I am putting different warning messages in here. So let's say that I put 1973, pre-1973. And really what we're talking about, I want to go ahead and put that 1970 in there. So it got in the 1970, it got in the pre-1973, but this gives these notes. Now, if you change these notes to Inspector Notebook, then you're doing something different than what I'm doing, but that's okay, right? By putting these in as notes, so electrical aluminum wiring warning. I'm not saying that you have aluminum wiring. If I see aluminum wiring, I'm going to call that out. But I'm putting this note in that, hey, just so you know, between these dates, we did have a problem with aluminum wiring. If the inspector, if you're doing what I'm doing here and you don't want this note to go in, all you have to do is change it to Inspector's Notebook. And what it's doing instead of putting a note in for the client is really it's putting a note in for me. I don't see aluminum wiring every day, and I don't have these dates memorized. And I also have links here where I can just immediately go and look up information about aluminum wiring. So
do you guys like putting that kind of info into the report? Anybody? Yeah, John, I'm getting a thumbs up. I love doing that kind of thing. I mean, to me, I do a lot of reporting of what I don't find and just like trying to explain what I'm looking for. Like, hey, this is a 1972 house. I'm looking for aluminum wiring, and I'll let you know if I find it. Right? That's sort of what Jeff's
really
trying
what
to
the
accomplish
note
there.
That is exactly what the note is doing. But I do have the ability to change. I can just uncheck these and get rid of any statements here. And then if I hit the red dot, I'm going to save it that way. But this is an electrical aluminum wiring warning. This is a lead warning. This is an asbestos warning. And it is telling them that if I see something that is concerning, like on the asbestos one, I am telling them asbestos is out of scope.
Yep.
But I still might take a picture of something and tell you that that I think it's asbestos and you should have it tested. So the note basically is telling them I'm not an asbestos expert. I'm not doing a hazardous materials inspection, but because we're pre-1986, it's common for houses to have asbestos in them. So I'm making them aware of that. And again, if you don't like having this in the report because you don't want to upset the agents or you don't want to upset your customer unnecessarily, what you would do is have this in here, but change it to Inspector's Notebook. And now it's a warning for you that you should be looking for this thing on this house, because I'm filling out this section. This is just the introduction. I'm filling out the introduction here before I leave the house, and it's going to pop up these warnings. And I like having that information available to me. So I like giving it to the customer, but if you don't want to give it to the customer, I think it's a good thing to have anyway. Similarly, on the temperatures here, 80 to 90 or 60 to 70, and you'll notice that there's some overlap on these numbers. That way you have some choice depending on the circumstances of what the weather's been the last few days and things like that. When the weather's hot, there's a possibility, and that's what I'm warning them about. There's a possibility that I might not be able to run the heat. Now, it does depend on circumstances. So are people living there? How hot is it in the house? Do they have air conditioning? But there are definitely situations where when it's hot, I don't want to run the air. And it's an old person's in the house. It's already 90 degrees in the house and it's 100, it's hot outside. I don't want to run the heat. And likewise, we have these situations where I'm not going to run the air. Notice the overlap though. You've got a 60 to 70 here. If you wanted to put a 50 to 60 in here, that's fine too. So, these are ones that don't trigger those notes. And then this says I can't run the air. It's just, temperature wise, I can't run the air. I have similar things. If I want to put in that there were mild weather conditions, that's fine. If I put in any of the challenging ones, then it's going to say something about how that can obstruct the inspection.
That's awesome.
Occupancy, personal items obstructing view. Even if it's vacant, when it's vacant, there's a concern. And then if it's a rental unit. So these are just all warning notes for the customer. What I put in inspector's notebook, this is the introduction. So you're not always going to have all of these things in here. I usually have diagrams and I have whatever SOP. And because we're in the introduction, I went ahead and put in the ASHI pre-drywall standard here. So if you were about to do pre-drywall and you don't normally do pre-drywall, and you're using your own normal template and you didn't use a special template for pre-drywall, this is what ASHI says you're supposed to be doing for pre-drywall.
Nice.
And you might want to just scan through this before leaving if you're going to take on a pre-drywall and it's not something you do all the time. I also might make a template out of this. But this is actually how I'm making these templates. So I have a library category with all of the Indiana law in it, and I have a category with all the Illinois law in it. So this is my Indiana template. I also have my Illinois template. This link is the law for home inspectors for Indiana. So if you want to look anything up, it's just, there's a click and you're at the law, right? How often do I look this stuff up? Not that often. But, I might want to, so I put in a bunch of things because we're in the introduction section. This isn't like plumbing or electrical. So I've got what is a property type according to the SOP that you're following? What's the property type? What is a home inspection? What is a home inspection report? If you're in Indiana and you haven't read this, that's not good. Because this is what you're required to do. This is what you're required to put in your report. So if you're not looking at that, that's not a good thing. This should be in your boilerplate and this should be affecting how you write your reports. But anyway, I've got the compilation of the law, property type, inspection, home inspection defined, report defined, and then I've got things that I found in the law that don't make sense to me. So I just put them in as a warning because it's like there's contradictions between two different laws here, right? So it's just FYI, these two things don't make sense together.
We could all use the section of our SOP that doesn't make sense to us.
Right.
I think we all have a few of those. So, I mean, when I look at this, this section that you've built here, that's really so elegant. The top is really quick placeholders for your pictures so that when you're on mobile, you can select one of those checkboxes and all of your pictures for this particular section would probably could go into one of those. Is that correct?
Well, yeah, let me go ahead and head over to the first section that's not the intro, right?
Yep.
So this again right here, not visible below grade, that goes in automatically.
Mm-hmm.
If I have something that I want to make, all of these things are orange because all of these things are putting in some kind of a comment to the customer. But my best case scenario for drainage conditions and systems is, hey man, that's underground. I can't see that. That's my nothing's wrong comment. It doesn't go in the summary, right? But drainage conditions and systems that are underground are not visible. So this just goes in by default. But let's say that I have a drain. So this is if there's a problem with a drain. This is my comment for that, right? So I can put in that there was a problem with the drain, and then what this becomes, because this goes in here as well, if I click on drain noted, and then I click on that and I put in at multiple locations, I'm just making a little note for myself that that's happening at multiple locations. That's all I'm doing there, right? But this is my comment about drains. So this is sort of like the generic stuff that I put in. And I left off things about I recommend a plumber, because when I put this in by default, I have it configured in a way I don't really know what the issue is. I could just be pointing out that there's a loose cover, like covers were missing, covers were loose, but I could be putting in water was ponding, mossy areas were noted, green marks, water runoff from adjacent properties, right? Installation did not appear to be up to normal professional standards. Discharges were not found, right? I can make this more serious, in which case that's not going to be due diligence anymore. I'm going to change it to repair. And I can, put in that there was a suspect installation, right? Suspect repairs. Installation did not appear to be up to normal standards. So that's my question mark that I popped in right there. And this is ready to go, right?
So do you guys see how Jeff used a little gunny sack? Click open your suspected repairs. You've built a little gunny sack to kind of add all of these other qualifiers, really. It's like modifiers within modifiers. And Charlie Buell had that. He kind of does that in a way. Pretty cool. And I like how you used all of the little emojis and stuff. So a cool way to, and we get a lot of questions about safety items, and this would allow you to kind of quickly tag a comment as a safety item if you wanted to. Pretty cool, Jeff.
And these are the same in every single one of my comments.
Yeah,
all my comments have the same list. And what's nice about doing that with having the exact same list is that in my boilerplate, I explain what these things mean. And that does matter for things like possible association issue. I want that to be defined very precisely. What do I mean by that? Because let's face it, we don't even know for sure what is and isn't part of the association. So that is something I want to write that up that way.
And if you guys have questions at the end, I'm happy to walk you through building gunny sacks. If you guys are newer to Scribeware and you don't know what gunny sacks are, but that's kind of the structural tool that Jeff has used to create these sort of endless bulleted lists. And part of what's amazing looking at this template is it's like you don't have, in a way, there's not much in it because every comment can be so modified to suit the situation.
I'm trying to have as few comments as possible.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big key to what I'm doing, is I want to have as few as I can. Now, where does that not go well? Things like, so grading and drainage is a challenge because you're on one side of the house and the house looks a certain way. And then you go around to the other side of the house and it has changed. And you've already started documenting things. So I have a gunny sack here called concerns noted. But see these other gunny sacks, negative, flat, high, and settled? See that list?
Yep.
I'm going to click on concerns noted. And notice what this looks like. I've got grading and surface drainage, and I have these different things. So grading, flat, negative, settled, high, pooling, mossy, green marks, water runoff. I don't need any of these other ones, negative, flat, high, and settled. I don't need them. But the reason that I have them is because when I pull up to the house and the grade is negative, I don't want to have to double click on this because that happens so often that I would much rather just put in this negative one. So I've got negative here, and I can also put in that it was negative at the back. And then I can put in that it was flat, and I can say where it was flat in the back, but I don't have to, because in my negative grading one, I can add in that it was flat.
Mm-hmm.
What I did here is, if you look at, that's a bug that they told me is already fixed, but I need to wait for the next version to come out, that thing where it's doing that. All of these things, whether you're looking at the flat, the negative, or the high, or the settled, these are all just my concerns noted gunny sack with different things selected.
Mm-hmm.
It's all the same gunny sack with different things selected. And the reason
pre-selected, basically.
Pre-selected. And that gives me a really quick way to bring things up, because if I bring up this negative one, it pops up. But while I have any one of these things up, if I find another one of these, like high, I could click on the high one and it'll put in my high one here. But if I don't want to do that, if I want to just add the photo into this gunny sack, then all I got to do is add in my high checkbox.
Mm-hmm.
And this is, as long as I'm looking at grade and drainage, I might as well pop in here. Here's all my comments about crawl space wells. Here's all my comments about window wells. This is what Dylan was just talking about with these gunny sacks, right? So the gunny sack is a collection of alternate text, and each one of these things that I'm clicking on are alternate text. So here's my comments about basement wells, and then other considerations is going to be always weird stuff that you can add in, that you want to put in. So like, I'm very hypersensitive about these critical slope areas. When I think that there's a really big negative drop off and I can see that features are moving away from the home, and then I get inside and I've got bad cracking and complementary cracking, that the critical slope thing is always a concern for me. So I've got that under other considerations in my drainage stuff. I have these weird other things that come up. The vegetation is just, concerns noted. And then again, it's a gunny sack. So I have this coming up by default, the way that this is what I see almost every day. So when I pop it up, it's almost always just ready to go. But let's say that there was a dead tree, right? There's a dead branch right there. I can just add in my dead branch comment into my vegetation gunny sack.
Can you click open the gunny sack again, Jeff? So just so everybody knows, you see the edit button at the upper right. If you want to add on more of these things, you can just keep adding them on. And so really what we're trying to solve with these gunny sacks is my library has 4,000 comments, and it's like, you just want to shoot yourself sometimes. And, I think Charlie managed to take his library of 4,000 comments and make like 150 comments or something, and I think that's kind of what Jeff's doing. He's taking his whole library from a different system of thousands of comments and trying to really boil it down so that you're not really spending time trying to find a comment. You just quickly have the right comment, and you're kind of, clicking buttons to modify it to suit the specific situation.
And that's where we get into the library management in terms of where are you storing these comments? How are they organized? So one of the examples that I have of that, so this is just an example, like grading negative, whether it's negative, flat, high, or settled, those are all just this concerns noted comment brought up in different ways. And when you click in under high, you can put front, back, one side, both sides. This is just a quick way for me to make notes for myself and to get that into the report, because even though that doesn't go in the summary, that does go in the report. and I don't have to fumble through location in my gunny sack. But
Mm-hmm.
I could put it in the gunny sack. I could put locations noted and just put a alternate text that has location in it, and I would just add location to this. But when we get to electrical, so if I go to the electrical section, so that's going to be under systems. So if I go to the Indiana law on electrical, this is what's in my SOP, right? This is what I'm supposed to be doing on the electrical. All I did was convert that into these fields.
Cool.
All of the ones that are red, I'm really just I just copied and pasted what they're asking for in the SOP. And in most of our SOPs, electrical is the biggest by far. So it's interesting to me how much stuff is in there. And I've tried to give, like, you know, service drop, the lateral, the entrance conductors, the cables, the raceways. I'm trying to put at the top the most benign, everything's fine, or what I see the most often. I'm trying to get that in there. But when I get to something like lighting fixtures, if I'm looking at switches, okay, if I click on concerns noted here under switches, that comment is right here. This is my switches comment. If I went to the interiors section and I go to interiors, under electrical, I might want to say see electrical section. But if I didn't want to say see electrical section, if I wanted to put the issue here, if I put this switch issues comment in right here, this is the exact same switches comment. My outlet comment, I have one outlet comment. I have one GFCI comment. I have one switches comment, which includes stair lighting, hallway, large rooms, switched receptacles, switches, single bulb fixtures and closet lighting, dimmers and similar devices to dimmers, covers, places where there should be lighting and there's no lighting, right?
Yep. How do you do locations on this one, Jeff?
So if I want, one of the things that I've been finding, I really honestly, I'm not recording location very often. What I am doing is I'm taking a picture up close of the defect and I'm taking a picture far away of the defect. If I want to put in location in this situation, I would be doing it in the caption for the photo.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's where it makes sense to put it. But here's the thing. Electrical, almost always, it's not always the case. We do have isolated instances with electrical. You do sometimes get into the garage and the electrical in the garage is horrible, or the electric in the attic is horrible, or the electric in the basement is horrible, and it's not horrible in the rest of the house. But that's not the norm. That's not what we normally see. This is more like finding ants. You find one ant, then you find 10 ants, then you find 30 ants, okay? Location to me on switches and outlets is not important for a bunch of different reasons, but part of it is that when we tell people that we're only doing representative sample, and if the house is vacant and you're checking every outlet and every switch and every single light, fantastic, that's what we should be doing. But you don't have to. It says representative number. So if I find 2 outlets that don't have a ground, I really don't want to specify where those were. Mm-hmm. I would like to say I found 2, there might be more behind furniture. I found 2, I didn't check every single outlet, there might be more. And then if I have a picture zoomed in and a picture zoomed out, without having to type location, location is in there. Mm-hmm. We've got the location.
How do some of you guys do that? Because I find electrical, especially on a big house, it gets really hard to like the third north side bedroom that's painted green on the west wall. It's like, Jesus Christ. Yeah, it's like drawing a map to the thing. It gets really hard sometimes. Does anybody have any other tricks they like to use for that?
No, anything over 2, I just say multiple.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Jeff's, I love your ant analogy. I mean, with electrical, I think we're all on the same page. A few little things is no big deal, but once you start seeing less than professional workmanship, you start getting worried. It's like ants. It's like it could be anywhere,
And it is a matter of what happens most often, what's unusual. It's very common for it to be the ant situation. Once in a while, there is one outlet that's clearly messed up and the rest of the house is fine.
Yeah.
And then location is extremely appropriate. I think location makes perfect sense if I've got one really messed up outlet. But yeah, as soon as I start finding 2 outlets with no grounds or 2 switches that don't seem to turn any outlets on and off and there's no overhead lights, I don't want to start specifying locations because I want an electrician to come in and check all the switches now.
Yeah, and I usually do put locations of things. So one of my workflow things, I've gotten really comfortable with voice to text.
Yeah.
And if, to me, voice to text in order to dictate paragraphs is close to useless. That's just really difficult to do.
Right.
But my thing with voice to text is just what is it and where is it? What and where?
If
loose
if
receptacle, northwest bedroom, and rotted post, southeast corner of the back deck, and if you can get in that habit, then you've got this kind of granular location stuff that you can then manipulate as needed.
But you could also put it into an alternate text here. So this is just one of my alternate texts. If you added one in here called location, you could definitely add locations. Issues were noted at the following locations, and then you would have a list that you could click on.
Yep. Locations are so hard because once you're into bedrooms, like it's really hard to make a pre-made list with bedrooms because every house is so different, and there's no good way to describe a bedroom especially if there's like 4 or 5 bedrooms. Like, I don't know, they're hard to describe. There's not like beyond the master bedroom or whatever, the main bedroom.
It ends up being a very large pull down list.
Yeah, you build a huge gunny. Yeah, cool. Let's see. We got a few things. Wayne says in my report list as rooms, and if the defect of a certain room. And I think, Wayne, if I'm understanding you, I actually spent some time building a room by room template. And I don't personally use the report that way, but one really huge advantage to that is the location is by default. If you have a chapter for each room in the building, right, then it's a really convenient thing. Now the location is just automatically in that place. So that's pretty cool.
I am planning myself. I want to use these, that first checkbox, the reference photos, a lot. I do this in my current software that I'm using. I'm switching over to this, but I have these reference photos, and it is very convenient to pop those reference photos in when there's nothing wrong, especially if you didn't finish answering all of these questions. But one of the things I'm doing is I'm breaking this down into some kind of granular here. So service grounding, for example.
Ooh, that's a good one.
The thing is that when I'm outside looking at the grounding, I may not have much out there. And if it's an overhead service and there's no ground rod, all I want to do on the outside is note that there was no ground rod. And I don't even need that note to be something that the customer understands. I need it to be something I understand. I need to remember that there was no ground rod out there. But I don't necessarily want to make a big deal about it yet. But look at all of this. This is just the fields, meaning that I'm not even getting into the gunnies or anything complicated. This is just a pull down list. Where did I see my service grounding? I saw it inside multiple panels. I saw it connected at the water service, right? This gives me, now it's not going to look like this with this greater than symbol and all that stuff. That's, like I said, that's a bug that they're fixing. And if I put this in on the mobile, it doesn't do that. But basically, I get to say in here, was there a ground rod? Were there 2 ground rods? Does the GEC connect up to the meter cabinet? Is there a connection to the metal plumbing? Is the connection within 5 feet of the service? Did I see it inside? Or do I have obstructed view because of coverings? So if I say that it was visible inside the panel and it was connected near the water service, but then I have obstructed because of coverings, I've documented all of this grounding, what's going on with the grounding. And on the outside, I would have in there C electrical for the service grounding. Or on the outside, I could put in this comment about it being visible. I can put in the ground rods. I can put in that the GEC was going to the meter cabin. So this fully documents, I'm not even getting, this isn't a defect. I'm just really documenting well why I didn't call out anything wrong with the service grounding, even though I couldn't see all of it, because I had an obstructed view because of the coverings, but I saw it at the plumbing and I saw it at the main panel.
Can you build a simulated inspection in that electrical section and then preview it real quick? Like you were, simulating an inspection you just showed up on and for this particular section?
I wouldn't have any, I don't have photos is all right. But
Yeah.
so service,
Yeah, we could do it without photos. That would be fun.
Do you mean right now?
Yeah.
So yeah, or do a video for later and then preview it so we see it in report mode too. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, I would need to get photos for that and do that. But in terms of just populating this, so the service drop, overhead or underground?
Underground.
Whichever, build it. You know Indiana better than I do.
Yeah, just make one up. Go through like a common house.
Yes, just pull any picture into there. It wouldn't matter if it matches. Just pick any random picture that you have.
I mean, if we're just marking this up like styles and materials and there's no defect. So copper, there was some tin copper, overcurrent protection device. We had breakers, lighting fixtures. It was working at the main entrance. Most locations were working. Switches, we have concerns noted. Receptacles, let's just say that we did representative number inspected. Ground fault circuit interrupters. So here I can put in that all of the ones that I tested, I was able to reset. And I can put in that GFCI protection was confirmed at all expected locations here. So by putting it in that way, I'm dealing with what are we, what GFI is tough. What the heck standard am I comparing this to?
Totally.
Right? What year am I going to use?
This looks like some CYAs.
Absolutely, there's CYAs. On electrical, there's absolutely CYAs because the best of my inspections on electrical, I haven't seen stuff.
Yeah.
Service amperage ratings, I'm not measuring them. If you're measuring them, that's fine, but I want to make clear that wasn't measured. So there's a 200 amp service. It's a 120, 240 split single phase. The main disconnects were at the main panel, but if I want to get more specific than that, I can say that they were inside and I could say it was in the garage.
So if you skip sub panel and
That's
it's red, it will allow you to come back and do it later, right?
Or I can skip it and I can tell it that I'm not doing it. So right now, the location of sub panels, what's not wonderful about the way I'm leaving this right now, if I just hit this green, this checkbox right here, this green checkbox, I'm telling it that I'm done with the electrical section. That's what I'm telling it when I check that off. And I don't have these things be red anymore. But let's think about the SOP for a second. It doesn't say in here that I need to describe the sub panels if they exist. I'm really better off location of sub panels. I want to say none found.
Mm-hmm.
That's why this is red. This is in the SOP. So I don't want to just leave it off the report. Okay. Low voltage down here, low voltage accessories, audio, video. This stuff's not in scope. And it's also not really in the SOP telling me to do anything with it. So I didn't make it required, it's not red, and I didn't make it orange, it's not recommended.
And so it's not going to show up in a review for you later if you were to try to go back and
unless I
use
put,
red to review.
yeah, it's not going to show up. It's not going to bother me. Now, if someone keeps asking me about the audio video stuff and I want to drive home that it's not included, I can pop that in there. But if I don't, then it just won't show up.
Gotcha.
So interior subpanels, I want to say we didn't have any. Wiring method noted. We have non-metallic sheath cable, which is called Romex. Smoke detectors, that's in the SOP. All I have to do is say whether or not they're present. That's really all that's in the SOP. Yeah. But if I do want to write up absence, let's go ahead and put in that there was an absence. And again, for my own notations here, I want to say that it was the upper floor that didn't have it.
Yeah.
So that's not necessarily going into the narrative, the fact that it was in the upper floor, but it does end up.
You're handling locations that way, which is cool too.
And it's fast.
Yeah.
It's very fast.
Yeah, the location thing is cool to put in, very cool to put in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So on smoke detectors, look how this comes up. This is my default. This is without me messing with any of the gunny sacks. This is just my normal smoke detector comment. The very first thing I'm telling them is
let me interrupt you. Show them how a picture would lay in there with all that gunny sack. You would just your pictures would just lay in there below them. There you go. Okay. All right.
So this is just, I do not test smoke detectors, alarms, and similar devices. I have a new construction comment that I can put in right here. And then I have a comment about, hey, you should just replace these. So that's just really quick and easy to put it in there.
And just to clarify for people that are not familiar with these gunnies, what he's really done is made huge lists and then pre-selected parts of those lists. And whatever you have selected, you see the little red asterisks at the upper right. If you hit update comment, it'll remember the gunny sacks as you have them selected. So he's kind of pre-filled out a whole bunch of gunny sack and then updated the comment. And that way it will display pre-filled out. He can still click on any of these and remove them or add more as needed. Each one of these yellow sections represents there's going to be more. It's a honey hole. There's more stuff there that you could click on and either subtract or add to.
We got a question.
Yeah.
How do you do the larger type and the smaller type? Because that's really helpful.
Yeah. So let's look at this. I recommend 10-year battery type. So I'm going to click on this smoke detector recommendations, and I'm going to click on edit. So right here, I recommend 10-year type batteries. If I highlight this right here and I go up here and I click large.
Okay, I see it now. Thank you.
So this is if I have issues like they're missing at some locations, disabled, beeping, old, close to the ceiling, close to the wall. And then this is stuff that's general information, including, here's a link. This is a link to, I don't know if you'll be able to see it or not. Let me see if I can drag this over.
You might have to drag it over to the screen. Yeah, there it is. You're getting it in, I think.
You guys see that?
There it is. Yeah. Do you guys see it? NFPA.
Yep.
Okay. So that's just in my, if this is in my standard comment. For more information, see the following link from NFPA. And then that's just that link right there. And that's just built into the comment. And this issue's noted.
No, Jeff, that makes up my whole smoke detector section in my report is that one link. you are really God, it's so granular.
Yeah, well, you don't have to do it that granular though. So
Yeah.
Issues noted. This is where I can put in the specific defects.
Yeah.
But even if I don't click on anything, this right here, I don't need to change this for any house. There's
Yeah,
no
you
reason
wrote
for
it
me.
one time and you're done with it. Yeah.
There you go.
And if you guys take this list and you don't like one or two of these, all you have to do is uncheck a couple of these things and then hit the red dot, and you're saving it configured the way that you like it. Recommended locations. So I have one per structure, one per floor, one within 20 feet of all bedrooms on each floor, one in each bedroom or sleeping area. And then I just have this small print down here, which is the scary information, right? So this is all I have, and you can uncheck this if you don't like it, right?
Smoking may kill you.
Yeah, the death rate per 1,000 reported fires in the home is twice as high for people that don't have working smoke detectors. You're twice as likely to die in a fire.
So you did. I noticed you didn't unpack ionization versus photoelectric. That's the smoking gun with this.
Right in here.
I guarantee you, Jeff's not missed it.
That's the second.
There it is.
sentence.
Yeah.
So, and you can uncheck any of these things, but this is a tremendous amount of information on smoke detectors. And if your client really does want to be protected, this is the information they need. I know that most of our clients are going to glaze over this and ignore it, and that's fine. But this is how it comes up. I want these things to come up by default in a way that works for most houses. And then I can just go ahead and change the gunny sack by checking and unchecking things for whatever house I have.
And you
Bill
do
and
that in
Jeff.
the field too, right, Jeff? You can do it. All that can be manhandled while you're in the field.
Yes, this can all be changed while you're on the tablet.
Dylan or Jeff, question for you. If you go back to your smoke detector area, scroll back. So on this, just curious on future reporting. Let's say you want to do this smoke detector recommendations. Can we have it that you could have it as like you click on it and you get all those 8 or 9 bullets versus when people want to read that part, they would click on it and it would open up for them versus filling up more space in the report as they're reading it. Like for the people that care, they're going to click on it. But for the majority of the people, if they're not reading the full detailed, they'll read, okay, smoke detectors, I need new ones.
Gotcha. Okay, let me tell you how
And then they would be able to, on the final report, expand that and then see all your parts, but they would be in there.
Let me tell you exactly how I would do that. It's not going to do exactly what you just said about if I click and if I click on it, it's going to expand the list for the customer on the HTML, on the report. It's not going to do that, but let me tell you how I would do that. If I break this comment, because this is actual defects, right? This is specific things that are wrong in the house. If I broke this comment into 2 different comments, one of them is a note. The note is going to have all of this general information in it, and it's not going to go into the summary. It's only going to go into the full report. Does that make sense?
No, I agree, but my thought was for some of our gunny sack comments, like right now I'm not using them, but you pretty much are noting the deck is messed up because of blah, 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 blah. If you just had something that the deck is messed up because of the following, and you click and it would expand all the things, at least when the
I see what you're saying, like a feature proposal, Ed, where like when you make bulleted lists, they could expand. That
I'm looking at your thing as if I was the customer, Jeff.
Yeah.
And if I was the customer,
won't work in a PDF.
Yes.
Yeah, that would be risky. Well, I also, one criticism of that from my perspective, one of our competitors has reports where it's, to me, feels like obfuscation, and you always have to click on things to see whether it's actually a problem or not. And I'd love to avoid that.
No, I got that. I was just thinking about the length, like when somebody is reading something that something like the smoke detectors is not basic, but it is basic in some senses, which some of it is.
I'm I'm putting two different things together. I'm putting actual defects together with a bunch of general information.
Yeah.
And I think the best way to solve what you're talking about is by having that note that doesn't go in the summary, because the people that don't want to read the summary, that don't want to read the full report, they're just going to avoid that stuff. And all you're putting in there is the general stuff.
Yeah, I
So
guess
to me,
you're correct.
It
to
doesn't
me,
change the length of the report a whole lot, but that's how I do it. I put all my CYA kind of things in a note that's like fine print almost, you know, and that does it, it condenses it, you know.
this smoke detector comment, most of this text from a defect standpoint is in this one alternate text that has nothing in it. This is the only one that's specific to the home. All the rest of this stuff
Yeah,
could
it's
be
just
in a
generic.
note. It could absolutely be in a note because it's not specific to the home. So I think that would be a great way to split it up so that your customer that doesn't want to look at all that information can just look at this part.
That's probably how I would do it.
Yeah, I agree with this second option.
Hey, Jeff, can we preview that? I love the look, how you've formatted this. Let's have let's, if we can, I'd love to see what that looks like.
We put switches in there a bunch of times.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
reference
there's that
photos is
smoke
just,
alarm. Yep.
yeah. So missing smoke detectors, here's where I recommend putting them. There's the photo in there.
Yeah, that's really nicely formatted. I think you did a great job using the different font sizes and stuff.
I do like having, even though underline in blue is not a wonderful choice because it's the same thing as a link usually, but having a large print there is helpful because it does break this up more. It does make it more clear when you're the difference between when these things run together. Sometimes it gets a little confusing.
Yeah, that's nice that you gave all of your comments a big fat title that's
Right.
visible in the finished report. And that's actually comes up a lot as a request from people, is they want to have an observation title. They like our blue titles that are hidden, but they want to be able to see a title in the finished report as well. So Jeff solved that problem. You got to do it manually, but it looks, I think it looks nice. It's easy to read.
So look at what happened with the grounding, right? So I've documented where I saw the grounding. I saw it connected at the water service. I saw it connected going into the meter cabinet, and I got in here a note that I didn't open the meter cabinet. We have a problem in our SOPs. Our SOPs say that we're supposed to be looking inside the service equipment. Is anybody opening the meter socket?
Not often.
Isn't that the service?
Yeah.
Yeah, that meter socket is owned by the electric service company.
I absolutely agree that we shouldn't be opening the meter socket. I don't open the meter socket. Even when the tag's gone, I don't open the meter socket. But our SOP says that we are.
Yeah.
That's the service. Anyway, obstructed view coverings, right? So I didn't see it going from the water meter, from the water service over to the panel, right? So this just really documents it very well. Copper, I threw in there that it was tinned copper. Breakers, we've got all this stuff in with the light fixtures. The switches had concerns noted, and that's going to come up right in here. This would have photos in it, right, of what was wrong, and we would put in whatever text we want for whatever's wrong with the switches. I didn't select anything on that.
Cool.
Jeff, thanks for doing this, by the way. But I have to ask, based on all the work that you put into drop down lists and these gunny sacks, what do your actual picture captions look like? Have you been able to make those kind of creative as you've made your report, or are they just, scrolling through your drop down menu?
So the system, so you're talking about the captions on the photos?
Yes.
I don't have any captions on the photos that are saved as comments. I like using the voice to text, which, like Dylan's doing. My voice to text is going to end up being a bullet point. It's not, I don't want to talk voice to text and convert that into paragraphs either. That's something Dylan said earlier. Trying to write entire comments that way doesn't work, but as bullet points, it does. So that's where I'm putting location, and that's where I'm putting anything that I want to get into the report, but it's not showing up in the photo, and I want to just type that later. So I'm using.
But for those of you that do want to do that, Dylan, doesn't the photo captions have its own separate library?
It does. Right now, that's not enabled on mobile. That's on the list of mobile improvements. But we have a separate photo captions library. Wayne is smiling because he was just hectoring me about this yesterday. But on the desktop, we have a separate photo captions library, which, if you like using the photo captions to bullets feature, is actually really helpful to have all these pre-made photo captions that you can select. So can't wait to get that enabled on mobile, hopefully here shortly.
Jeff, so just make sure I understand your thought process. After you get done with this, decision tree process, if you will, for your report, you actually personalize any note or narrative within the picture narrative.
I like using the voice to text as a caption, and then hitting this button to do the custom portion, because it ends up being a lot better than things like missing.
Mm-hmm. That's why I use so much voice to text. It accomplishes my desire to fool the client into thinking I spent all night writing the report. I mean, I don't want it to look like I pre-wrote it, and so the voice to text helps me with that. But
yeah, next door to that dead tree, and that way you're commenting something real specific to or you have the opportunity to.
Yep. But what Jeff's doing is providing like all the structure you need, where then the photo captions are kind of just the icing on the cake. And that's exactly, to me, the approach is like, try to get 90% of the narrative all written up, and then all you need to do is add a few little details. And you could use the little photo captions to bullets feature, or even just have the photos captioned available, and then people can click on them or just see where they are.
What I think would be cool would be, I would wonder what that would look like if you stacked all of those smoke detector comments that you have in subdirectories and subcategories all on one sheet of paper. What do you got there? 2 pages worth?
Oh yeah, probably.
You got a bunch of detail.
Well, so what's really interesting is we've been getting a lot of users from the old inspected system, which is checkboxes. And one huge drawback to checkboxes is you can never have enough damn checkboxes to cover all the stuff we see. So, I mean, by definition, it was never an adequate report. What's really pretty cool about the gunny sacks is it's kind of like a checkbox report on steroids, where you can it solves the problem of an old checkbox. You can now have as many checkboxes as you need, and they sort of unfold for you and disappear depending on your use for them and your need for them.
So a lot of our SOPs, including Indiana, has this thing about describing stuff. And sometimes when I read the word describe, like on the roof, I think asphalt shingles okay. But what if I'm talking about something like stucco or synthetic stucco? If it says describe the exterior wall covering, and I just say that it's stucco, have I really done a good job of describing it to my customer?
If nothing's wrong with it and you don't get a call.
The proof is in the pudding.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. Well, so here's the thing. If I click on stucco, now just keep in mind, this is just one. First off, every one of these has a comment, and my intention here, and notice I've got composite / unknown materials. I wanted to cover everything possible, right? I don't want to be typing a description of exterior, but let me hit the stucco synthetic one. Mm-hmm. Stucco / synthetic. So this is just, it's due diligence, because I'm not reporting specific defects with the siding yet. I'm really just telling them what kind of siding they have. That's all it is. So stucco and or synthetic stucco was installed. For this type of product, I recommend getting all information regarding the product, installation, and maintenance history, and that's it, I'm done. That's how it goes in by default. So as the inspector, what I'm trying to do here, especially for new inspectors, but I have no problem working this way. You got to the house, it's stucco. We need to take a moment to figure out whether or not this is synthetic stucco or normal stucco. For me, synthetic stucco, and I live in a climate that's very cold and then very warm. Synthetic stucco is just a defect.
Mm-hmm.
It really needs to be inspected further by a qualified synthetic stucco specialist. So whether or not this is synthetic stucco or stucco is important. So if I can't figure it out, I want to get that in the report. So I have this way of putting this in. Now, let's say that the siding felt rigid and solid where checked and is likely to be real stucco. Or the siding sounded hollow when I tapped on the surface.
Yeah.
Synthetic stucco
So
installed.
how you identified it. Yeah.
Yeah. But one of the most brilliant things you've done with this, Jeff, is if you get out of this one for a sec, just basically, as soon as you have a building that's either stucco or EIFS or whatever, you got one button to hit on the mobile app. You hit that button and you've got one box to dump all your pictures. And this, it could be EIFS, it could be stucco, it could be perfect, it could be falling off the building. Doesn't really matter. Like either way, you're hitting one button and you're dumping all your pictures in there.
Well, it's two buttons, but yes,
Okay.
yes, it's two buttons. So the thing is that I'm breaking it into two pieces, describe it and then separate for the defects.
Mm-hmm.
So here, when I click on exterior wall covering, if I click on synthetic stucco, it doesn't have this wishy-washy crap about whether or not this is stucco or synthetic stucco.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just the stucco one. It's just the synthetic stucco one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So once you get to the house and you look at it, you can decide whether it is synthetic stucco or not. And this comment here is just checking off. Do I want to put this comment down here? I was not able to confirm siding type of materials. No, I don't want to put that, but I have to put that if for some reason I wasn't able to figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then look at this one. I've had this happen to me. The front of the house is old and it is stucco, and I tapped on it and it's stucco, and I got to the back of the house and I suspected that it was an addition. So I tapped on it and it was synthetic stucco.
Yeah.
With the same final coat.
Mm-hmm.
So I believe both stucco and synthetic stucco was installed, right?
Yeah.
So this is just my describe the siding one. And I do a very similar thing here for masonry, because with masonry, you don't know if you're looking at just siding or if you're looking at siding / structure. So I did the same thing where I wrote it in a way where the description part is just saying that it's just saying this is what brick is. This is what
That's a
the
lot of
other
good
product.
ideas you got there, Jeff.
Yeah,
So
I hope everyone's getting some cool ideas for their templates here. I mean, there's really a lot of neat ways to unpack this. Very cool.
So if I think it's stucco, then I have all these comments for stucco. So some stucco products, when maintained, perform pretty well. Regular maintenance is required. There are different products that look similar. I'm putting that in if I'm wishy-washy, right? I recommend getting all information on the siding. So this is just my, if it wasn't synthetic stucco, and I'm sorry, if it wasn't stucco and it was synthetic stucco, then I have these comments. So this isn't even, none of this is saying that the synthetic stucco is in poor condition. I'm not even there yet. I'm just saying this is synthetic stucco, and here are the normal problems that we see with synthetic stucco. And I can go ahead and make recommendations just based on the fact that it's synthetic stucco.
And when you're adding those with the mobile, you can click on the line with your finger. You don't have to hit the checkbox. Is that correct?
Yep. I know that is correct. Charlie put that in.
Yeah.
So Dylan, just to confirm, he's saying that on the mobile, you can click on those and you don't have to hit the check mark. You can click on the words.
Still munching on some stuff.
He's muted, I think.
Yep, that's
okay.
correct.
Oh,
this
cool.
is Steve.
Okay.
Yeah.
Steve, thank you.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
the siding condition, this is where I can put in more comments here in terms of there being a problem. But again, that's just the description. When I get to the exterior wall covering, concerns noted is going to be just general concerns about siding. So this is going to be clearances, damage and installation issues, masonry and mortar, lintels, and then my other considerations, which is just weird things that could possibly be going wrong there. That's the siding one. Here's the synthetic stucco. Here's split face block. If I put in that it's asbestos, I can make a note to myself. So if I click on asbestos and then put in that it's asphalt, this asphalt will go in the full report. It won't go in the summary because it's a field. But I'm going to get my possible asbestos comment, and my possible asbestos comment. Notice how this one, by default, I have this safety concern in this due diligence thing. And then I have this text, which you cannot get rid of. So that's just general information that I don't want to have go away, which is why I didn't make it something that you can check and uncheck. And then these are just
it's covering your butt.
Yeah.
And this is just my straight up asbestos stuff. And what's really nice about asbestos for me is that that's another one of those situations where I put this into the global. So if you go back to the inspection conditions, I put this in here, but you can type this anywhere. So let me put in this search terms one. So this is a global comment, and you can type in one search or one help, and it'll give you this list. And then these things are things that I put in the comments that are just for search terms. So let's say that I'm going to the interior. I'm going to interior section. And instead of clicking on interior doors, let's say that I wanted to put an exterior door comment in here. Okay. If I go down here and I click on add observation and I type in 1 DOO, one door, this is going to give me all my door comments.
That's brilliant. You guys see what he did there? That is so sweet. And I mean, that on mobile would just, it's like it's really going to be so fast.
You can speak that in though. You can say 1 DOO, right, in mobile?
Yeah. The keyword search works in mobile. So.
Gotcha.
You could also just type it with a keyboard.
Or you could make it XYZ. You can make it whatever you want.
Yeah,
you can make it whatever you want, but I do recommend using a combination of a number and a letter.
Sure.
Because this gives you a lot of control over false positives in the search.
Right.
This prevents the search from pulling stuff in you didn't intend.
So what he's doing is just, and I've been playing with this some, but you use a number for like, you know, if there's a certain comments you're using all the time, tag them with a number. If you can then create an organizational sequence where you can remember them, then you can just put those numbers in, and you could do like 111, 222, 333.
And he's got a cheat sheet up there for it. Right.
So
yeah.
And that's just so much better than like in my template. If I type in the word ledger, there's like 6,000 comments about the ledger board, and I'm nowhere closer than when I started.
And the only thing I did that's tricky on this comment, if you want to make a comment for yourself, and the bright green is because this doesn't go in the report. If you want to make a comment with your search terms, I put a space in here between the 1 and the AG and the AGE. So the reason I did that is because when I type in 1 AGE, I don't want this comment to get pulled into the search. So let me go to the furnace section for a second and show you that age one. So if I go to the heating and I type in
search specific, I say, AGE, yeah.
So I'm going to do, this is really cool because the search changes depending on what section I'm in. So if I put in 1 AGE, sorry, I wasn't in the comment. 1 AGE. Okay, this is
Wow,
all
that's
of these
awesome.
brands. This is what the date code looks like for that brand.
Okay, when can we share that?
Yeah. Yeah, Steve, this is where you got to start. We need to be able to share little sections of these.
So
Or Steve.
Yeah.
look at the manufacturers here, right? This is my list of manufacturers. Now, the only thing that this did not turn out the way I like it, this is the only thing I did that I don't like the way it comes out on mobile. The rest of my template, the mobile stuff looks good. The
Yeah,
problem with this is two problems. One, this list is huge and it takes up a lot of space on mobile. And I didn't do
Right.
that anywhere else. Everywhere else, I've broken it up a lot better.
Right.
The other problem is this photo doesn't come across on mobile very well.
Too small.
Okay.
It ends up being like you end up getting part of the picture and not the other part, but it works
Interesting.
fine on the desktop. But
With the-
that's
With the
that's
image,
it.
maybe? Yeah. Huh.
So the way I'm trying to do these things is I want the first answer to be everything's fine and it's perfectly normal. So in Indiana, the energy source for the heat is almost always gas. And I put in gas, and if you wanted to change that to natural gas to be the first one, that's fine. But I went ahead and I put that in there.
That's awesome.
So installed heating equipment. Actually, let me do this on fireplaces. Let's say that you have a house that has one fireplace. But then in the basement, okay. So if I've got a fireplace, so I'm going to say installed fireplace is 1. And then I'm going to say fake fireplace, not inspected. Have you ever been in a house where there's one real fireplace and then there's like a fake fireplace?
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't want to be on the hook for inspecting the fake fireplace as a real fireplace or having your customer come back and complaining. So that's why I put this thing in about saying how many there were.
Yeah.
One fake fireplace.
These are all description ones. So electric fireplace, gas log fireplace, gas insert, wood burning, wood stove. This is not defects. I'm not recording defects here. This is the same thing I did with the siding. This is just this whole thing here, and that's why it's a note. This whole thing is just telling them what kind of fireplace it is.
Gotcha.
That's it. So if they've got a wood burning fireplace and they've got a gas log fireplace, I've got those. When I put in the components, if I'm putting in issues for the components, so there was a traditional damper, and there was also a top ceiling damper, right? So we can go ahead and record both of those. On vent systems, we had a chimney. Oh, I know what I did wrong on that. Hold on one second.
Jeff, you've been hanging around with Charlie.
You don't have to go into as much detail as you can on this, right? You don't have to go into all the details, but you can. So if I say that we've got a damper and it's the traditional one, and then we also have the top ceiling, I can put that in that way. Okay, vent systems and flues. So types of materials, I've got a chimney, masonry, right? Okay, inspector's notebook. Now this is just, if you guys want this is just something I did when I first started. So I don't know how you guys are handling makeup air for things, that gas appliances, making sure that there's enough makeup air. But essentially what I did was I went ahead and I did the math the first couple of times. And this is what the math comes out to. So then I just ended up learning these.
That's cool.
Because
Love that.
40
That's nice.
And 7 feet's a good number for the ceiling height, right? It could be higher than
Mhm.
7 feet. It could be less than 7 feet. But if I've got 40,000 BTUs, I need a 20-foot by 14-foot space. If I don't have any ventilation whatsoever, if I don't have a louvered door, this is what the math comes out to. But I put in the math for calculating this.
So you use 7 because it's a basement usually in your area?
I just use 7 to give me, I really just picked that to give, I just randomly picked it, right?
Gotcha.
I could use 8, I could use 9.
8 would be better. So it would, you're home free if you go 8. So yeah. If you're in a house with 10 feet, you use 7. If you got 10 feet, you surely got to know.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. The 7 foot not being 8 foot, because 8 foot's a little more normal.
Yeah.
The 7 feet means that I'm artificially making my 20 by 14 a little bigger than it needs to be.
Yeah, I tagged you when you said 7 foot. I tagged you. It's living in the cold country where they have a lot of basements and they're all 7 feet.
Not all, but a lot of them. Yeah.
But generally speaking, that's what I was kind of thinking.
Yeah, that's what it is. There's definitely a lot of 7-footers, and I'd rather have those numbers be higher rather than lower.
Simple.
Yeah. But this, I know a lot of people don't want to do this math, and there's no reason to do the math, certainly not every time. But I did throw this in here. This is good information to have because 100,000 BTUs is pretty normal for a furnace. 40,000 is pretty normal for a water heater, and 140 is normal for having the two of them together.
Hey, Jeff, is that required in Indiana? Because it's specifically calculating makeup air is specifically excluded in the ASHI SOP.
It's not, it's not in there. It's not in the SOP to do it.
Well, and it's why he hasn't built it out as like one of the red items, right? It's not a required field. These are just kind of notes for when you're out in the field trying to
actually the sample makeup air calculation. This is inspector's notebook. This doesn't.
It's not even in the report. Yeah,
it's not even in the report. This is purely for your own information. And of course, you don't need to do it, right? You don't need to do that calculation. There's certainly some good safety.
But the reality is, if you don't have access to that, then it becomes almost impossibly unlikely that anybody's going to look it up and figure it all out. I mean, this is why God made software, is so that you can have this stuff near you, so that you can look it up quickly.
Right.
Yeah, I'm with you now. Now I understand.
You could step off the room, just step it and be close enough.
Yep, that's right.
20 by 14. Yeah.
Yep. Beautiful job on the notes, Jeff. It's great.
Thank you. This is the issues. I have the issues broken down by the type of components. So sealed devices, you would put all your defects together in one gunny sack. Open flame gas devices, that would be another gunny sack. Wood burning, that's another one. And freestanding, that's going to be your wood stove. So if I pop into the wood stove one, I'm calling it a wood stove. There were conditions noted with the wood stove, and then you can say wood stoves plural, fireplace singular, fireplaces plural.
Yeah.
And then I've got evaluated and repaired, evaluated and maintained, or don't use evaluated. All of this is completely configurable, right? You can select whatever you want, and if you hit the red dot, you're saving it to come up that way. But I want evaluated and repaired as my default, because if I'm bringing up the comment, it's probably more than maintenance. But I could change it, right? I could say, hey, you know what? This thing needs maintenance, and just change it to maintenance.
Mm-hmm.
But look under wood stove. Look at all the different, again, this is just the power of having these gunny sacks, right? So this is a gunny sack, to me, is just a sack of alternate text.
So it's just so nice, man. I mean, God, my wood stove sucks in my template. I have so many comments, So,
I want one comment. Yeah, this is one comment for wood stoves, period. Yeah. That's the goal. So under gas, I've got this, the unit was not working, not tested. Unit was shut down and not tested. Loose, missing, damaged. Key not found. Key was damaged. So this is just, and then here's my red is just for the gas leaks, right? So that's awesome. If it's a confirmed gas leak, then I've got it in red. So that's my gas. Here's my solid fuel. So I recommend a level 2 chimney sweep. I do not recommend any open flame devices in any sleeping area. It wasn't tested because it's a wood burning fireplace. I'm not going to run it. The height of the chimney is less than 15 feet. Smoke covered surfaces. So this is all just my wood.
Does the red text show print red?
I believe the red shows up red in the report in the HTML. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So my stove clearances are going to be different than my fireplace clearances. So my stove clearances, here's my list right here. Notice how I've got it right in there. Less than 8 inches to flammable flooring, less than 12 inches to protected wall, less than 18 inches in front of the equipment, less than 36 inches to unprotected wall, 36 to unprotected cabinet, 36 to window,
All right.
gaps in the fire protection, okay? Issues with the catalytic combustor. So this is just all that.
So are those, where'd you get those clearances? Because that's just the code clearances for like a non-listed appliance, right? Am I right on that?
I got it from
I got them from Home Gauge.
I was going to say, you got it from another software.
Yeah. Well, because that's, I mean, if it's a listed appliance, they're all going to be different. It's going to be on the appliance, not.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the place where I have it written that way, let me get this off the screen. So.
Wow, Jeff, I'm blown away, man.
You've done so much beautiful work, man. It's it's really fun to see.
Okay, I'm just trying to get this guy off the screen here. Okay, so yeah, well, and here's the other. This is the clearances. So remember, this is the diagrams. This does not go into the report. This is, you can grab these and put them in the report if you want to, but I don't love. This is just my own preference. I don't like having to search through here for the photographs.
Yeah,
I want to put the
it's
photographs.
so nice having all those just sitting right there. And you see, like Karen, you guys are working on a template, but see how he's just put all the illustrations as an inspector note. So those are hidden. And then you can just drag it down into the comment below, and then you can use it in that comment. That's really kind of nice.
So the easiest way to get this photo into the other comment is I actually drag it over to my second screen, plop it on the desktop there, and then I can scroll down to where I want to, and then I pop it in here.
Oh yeah. Can you copy paste it in there?
This only, when I right click, I don't get a copy or a cut option.
Oh yeah. Okay.
But if I drag it over to my second screen, that's the way. So, so actually I'm going to do that right now just so we can see it happen, right? So I'm going to take this, I'm going to drag it over here. And then I'm going to go down to the wood stove and I'm going to pop it in.
Yeah, cool.
That's awesome.
So this is the wood stove one. Thanks, guys. So this is the wood stove one. Okay, diagrams. Well,
it's almost like a gallery storage. That's awesome.
And thanks. Yeah, and you guys were asking about like what's required, like that that stuff about the combustion makeup air being not required. So yeah, I do not have that. I do not have that in my the combustion calculation there, the makeup air, that does not go in the report. That's in the inspector's notebook. It doesn't even go in the full report because there's math there, and I don't want to do that. I just want to say I think it's okay or it's not okay, but I want to keep the math available to me so I can show my work, right? If I wanted to type into there why I came up with that, that's what I would do. But look at the garage section. See the red and the orange and then the red and then the black again. So the red and the orange, the red is the stuff. So if I go into the Indiana law, I have 3 different sections that I'm used to write the garage portion. So it's what's required in the interiors, what's required in the structural, and then there's insulation and ventilation. So this is what I translated into up here into the red.
Mm-hmm.
So on garages, the reason why I said garage is red is because we do have a little bit in there on the law in terms of what am I inspecting on how many garages, because it says I'm supposed to inspect one garage.
And just making sure everybody's clear so you get this, the red are the required fields that connect to this whole review 66 items. And when you're almost done, you want to click on that flag real quick, Jeff, just so people get that. You can tab through the whole report, finding those required fields. So if a really smart move is getting your whatever your state SOP is, getting that set up with required fields, and that way you kind of are forced into it. And it's a really helpful way to review the whole report and make sure you found all the different things.
He's clicking each one. That's cool.
Yeah.
So if I go into interiors and go to garage, so the red,
If you, yeah, that'll go away. There you go.
so the red is going to be what's required. So what I want to do is, let's say that there's one attached garage that I'm inspecting, and there is a detached garage that I'm not inspecting. Now I just documented that without having to put in a narrative, without having to put in an observation that says I didn't inspect the second garage.
But if you wanted a full narrative, you could even link it to those too, if you wanted to. But
I could, but
yeah.
And I also have this X, which is the X is always going to be stuff I did not inspect. So not inspected structure, you could, change this to something else, but I'm using not inspected structure for the garage section because that's what I'm worried about. If I can't inspect that, that's what I'd be worried about. So let me get rid of these two. Okay, so garage, overhead door operations, and exterior doors, those are the required ones. This is something that is not in the SOP. It's not really spelled out clearly in the SOP, is the door between the house and the garage. So I don't know how many of you guys are calling out whether or not there's a self-closer on that door, but we do have some fire code, fire separation stuff that's required for that. So I have this, there was a self-closer and it was working properly. There was a self-closer and it closed lightly, adjustment recommended. So the closer's working, but they should give it a little bit more torque. I can document that it was a solid door. I can document that it was listed as fire separation. Okay. The reason I put this fire separation not confirmed is because if it's got a tag and you don't look at it, or even if you look at it, if you don't type in the numbers into Google, especially if the door has a glass window, a lot of times the listing tag has nothing to do with fire separation. It has to do with the glass. So either I want to note that it was listed as a fire separation with some fire separation, or I can say I saw a tag, but I didn't confirm. And I especially want to use that if there's glass, if I'm not going to confirm it.
I just want to say for the record that I like that you have closed lightly on there. That's freaking awesome. That's great.
It didn't really close all the way.
I know
It's
what you
not
mean.
that
Like
big
I've
a
done
deal.
that and you're like, God damn it, it sort of closes, but it doesn't really close right.
Jeff, is your distinction about the garage service door between the house and the garage, is that still valid for new construction? I've built homes here for 30 years, and if a label was on the door, it was not allowed to be put on that door if it wasn't hung in the jamb at the factory. And of course, around here, we never put glass in garage service doors.
Oh, I see horrible things between houses and garages.
Well, I can agree on older homes, back
Okay.
around the 50s and 60s, maybe
Yes.
even stretching into the 70s. But for the past 50 years,
Yeah,
and that's
well,
why I ask, do those kinds of comments apply to your comment about a tag? that tag requirement was a matter of the labeling, that the label had to be put on by a manufacturer who hung it in the jam at the factory. In other words, a pre-hung.
Okay. I also have that it's a solid door as an option.
Yeah.
So
That's right.
that's a perfectly normal fire separation method, is to just have a nice heavy door, right?
It's a really nice way that you've distinguished it, because I mean, it's really inaccurate to ever say like fire door, right? And so there's either a listing tag on it, it's
Yeah.
solid, you know, to the right dimensions,
Yes.
or you can't confirm it, right?
Yes.
I mean,
yes.
that's that, and you've done
Yeah.
that really nicely.
I had
That's
one
exact-
yesterday that like
that's-
that. Couldn't
That's
confirm.
exactly, yeah, no, that's exactly the problem, is that you don't really know for sure whether you're meeting fire code or not. You have a tag, you don't have a tag. It's a nice heavy door. It's not a heavy door. It closes or it doesn't close. For me to say that it meets fire rating is ridiculous. I don't know.
Yeah, you don't, it's really hard. I mean, sometimes like those old 60s ones, you know, it's like,
Oh yeah.
but no, a lot of time they're in this hard gray area. So that's
It-
good CYA there. I like
Yeah,
that a lot.
I can see that's good. It's like, to me, I checked 1,000 homes when they were built, and I always looked for the tag, and I felt comfortable. If the tag was there, I was okay.
Mhm.
It's not common to have glass in that door.
Yeah, exactly.
When there's glass in that door, you cannot trust the tag. You have to look at the tag more closely to
Yeah,
tell whether
I agree.
that tag
Especially
is.
plastic glass.
Right.
So you had to
So-
check the glass on the screen door in between the two rooms?
Well, specifically, yeah, between the garage and the house. Yeah. It is interesting how the garage can just be part of the interior, right? Let me go ahead and click this gunny sack. So this is the concerns noted for that door. So I wrote so I have 3 different doors. I have door comments. I have exterior doors, I have interior doors, and then I have the door between the garage and the interior, because we have all this automatic closer stuff and fire separation stuff.
That's
So-
brilliant. I mean, how nice though to have 3 door comments. Jesus, you know.
That's it. I think I shouldn't say that. Let me check and see what I've got. So that's
Yeah.
let me see
He's
exactly
gonna
how
pull out
many.
his secret text here. That's too
So
cool.
we have exterior doors. Okay, I do have others. I have more
No
than 3.
primary entrance found. Yeah.
No primary entrance. So lintels is not a door comment, but I have, look at my search terms for lintels. I have lintel, I have 1 STR for stairs, structure, excuse me, 1 STR for structure, 1 DOO for door, and 1 WIN for
Yeah.
window.
Yeah.
So I can always get my lintel comments up nice and quickly. Deadbolts, none installed. That's something I want to call out. Even though I have storm and screen doors as something that I can just say not inspected, I also can go ahead and put the defects in. I have the overhead door and then emergency escape and rescue comments. Interior door, and then this last one. So that's all my door comments. That's it.
So cool. It's fascinating. These could be CE classes, these reviews of people's templates, right? I mean, we could go deep into the weeds and all this stuff and get into big fights about, you know, I mean, it's a cool way to think about everything we do, you know.
You could easily spend 3 hours talking about doors, just
You could,
doors.
yeah, and how to write it up, and whether your comment's right, and whether that's closing lightly, and it's great.
So here's landings. So door swings over
Oh,
steps.
Jesus, landings, yeah.
Door swings over steps. This is not recommended at locations with more than 1 step. See how I got the small print in there?
Yeah,
right?
great. Love
Door
that.
swings over steps, not recommended at primary entrance. The reason I did these 2 separate comments is because it's 2 separate rules. There's a rule about the door swing over the steps that has to do, there's an exclusion for if it's 1 step. It's specifically excluded, but that exclusion doesn't apply if it's the primary entrance.
Mm-hmm.
It's an exclusion to the exclusion, right? So that's why I have it in there as 2 separate things. It's damaged, it's a trip hazard, it's unfinished, maintenance overdue, landing too small, door configuration unusual. This is just what the heck? What did they do with the landing, right? That's just a weird landing. So That's just landings. Then I have weather stripping. Then I have glass at or near doors. So safety glass should be used at most locations, including by doors, stairs, and showers. So I've got all of those. Then I've got the deadbolt, the hardware, pest comments if they're coming and going. And let me just see what I have on my inspector's notebook here. Okay. So if I do this one thing here, let me just do Indiana landings. Okay. So you know how, have you guys ever tried to read the code for landings?
No, it's a nightmare.
It's not legible. It doesn't make any sense. You can't actually come to specific conclusions about what you're supposed to be inspecting. In Indiana, one of the building guys got pissed off about it and he wrote, here's what we're doing for landings. This is the code for landings.
That's awesome.
In Indiana, broken down in a way that actually makes sense. And he specifically acknowledged areas where he had to take guesses on what the code was saying.
That's
He
amazing.
explains
Cool.
it. Yeah. So like here's storm and screen doors.
We got to set that guy loose on the TPR.
Oh God, that would be wonderful.
We got to, maybe you can make some sense of it.
Yeah, TPR valves, the thing that can never be correct, right? It's
Yeah,
either
it's
too high or too low.
It's wrong. You've done it wrong.
It's just wrong.
Yeah. Don't even try. Uh-huh.
So that's the landings one. But yeah, the thing that I did in here, I'm going to jump over really quick to the library.
Yeah, we should probably
Because-
wrap up in like 10 minutes.
Cool. So if you click on here, see where it says show all categories. Anytime you click on this and it doesn't have show all categories, chances are you want it to be showing all the categories. So you probably, if you don't know whether or not you should check that, just hit the checkbox. And I can go into a specific category like ASHI here, but you see how it popped in the word introduction and the word inspection conditions. Sometimes I'm not happy with how that pops up when I click on that, but here's a quick way to do that. If I go into here and I click on this 16 entries, I get all 16 entries done. So that's a quick way to navigate where you're definitely not losing any of the comments. They're not getting filtered out. So this is ASHI. This is the exterior. This is the electrical. This is the representative number, the definition of what that means. This is structural systems, ASHI insulation, ventilation. That's the ASHI one. If I go here and I switch over to my Indiana or my Illinois, here's Illinois. So here's Illinois' exterior. Here's Illinois' electrical. And then if I go to Indiana, here is Indiana's exteriors. Here's electrical, representative number, Indiana plumbing systems, Indiana interiors. So for whatever template I'm doing, I just go ahead and I put in whichever SOP. So for Indiana, under heating, I've got the heating requirements. So this is actually what's in my SOP. This is what I'm supposed to be doing with my exclusions.
Really amazing. What a tool for students. I mean, you've got the standards you're supposed to be reporting to, and you've, with the gunny sacks, you arguably have like every defect. I mean, you might need to add to it over time, but you can have a handful of comments that cover all the problems that you're going to see. I mean, it's all kind of sitting there for the taking.
Jeff, before you close out, what is end over there under additional information? Overview, far left in the menu.
I don't know that we have time.
Okay.
No. Okay, so let me just cover this real fast. So when you ever leave the house and you're not sure if you turned off the oven?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
So
got some checks there for that. Yeah.
At the end of every inspection, I want to note certain things before I leave. So is the client present? Yes or no? And this puts in a thank you note. So they get a thank you note if they were there. Okay, if they're not there, they still get a thank you note, but it's a different note. Because I want them, see that I want the comments in here about you need to read the report and you should come talk to me about the report. We should
Yeah, that's really
together,
clever.
right? So
You have one where you scold them for not being there.
Yeah, that's what I was like.
I guess we could add an option underneath no, right?
How could you be so callous?
Yeah.
Yeah. But so I've got if they came, and I want to record that. I want to get that information in there, right? But I also want to get in, I did turn off the stove. But here's another situation. What if it's not turning off the stove? What if the current owner, have you ever been on an inspection and somebody's cooking?
Very little.
It happens.
Yeah, it does happen once in a
Lot.
while.
I don't love that situation because that person was cooking and I distracted them.
Yeah.
And now if they burn down the house, it's very ambiguous what happened, right? Current owner was using the stove. I've got that in there.
Yeah.
Thermostat settings. Set to pre-inspection settings, confirmed off,
Gotcha.
set to 65, set to 68, set to normal usage for radon tech. The agent took care of it. The buyer's agent took care of it. The listing agent took care of it. The customer, the occupant, not applicable. So thermostat settings, I want to get that documented. Who locked the door, right? If I locked the door, that's fine. But if someone else locked the door, I just want to say the buyer's agent locked the door. The fireplace damper.
Gosh,
Okay,
some great ideas in here.
What happens? So what if it was open? So I don't want to leave it open and I don't want to close it.
Well, if you left it open down here, it'd get hot in the house.
What if you're doing a radon test?
Yeah.
So I do have in here, open at start of inspection. I have closed with permission, closed, left a note, closed for radon testing. So if it was open at the start of the inspection, I left them a note. I closed it for radon and I left them a note, and I would be able to put the other one in there, but I've got a little thing that's been fixed. It just hasn't gotten to my version yet. So I would put in here that it was open at the start of the inspection, but I had to close it for the radon. Okay, that's the inspection. That's just the inspection wrap up. Next steps. If I don't check anything, this is not going to go into the report at all.
Nope.
This is a create repair request list. This is pre-closing to-do list.
Yeah.
I don't inspect the pool, but I also want to give them some pool safety info if they have a pool. If there's an oil tank, here's oil tank. If there's well and septic, I've got something on that. And here's all about homeowners associations, what they do and what they don't do.
If you need one.
So I'm giving them the actual names of the documents they should be getting.
You gotta go pee-pee.
Cool.
That just
Boy,
shows
Jeff, you put some
the
serious
report.
work into this thing, man.
And then these are just limitations that you can just check off whatever.
All right, real quick, go over the overview. What's the overview?
Actually, that is not, I don't know. That is something that I ended up with
that's
and can't
just
delete.
built in. So that's funny. Well, that's on the cover page on the HTML. This would be where you could write a paragraph that would be like your overview statement, you know, and that's what it would sit up on top. That's funny.
I didn't. Yeah, I'm not using that.
Yeah,
I don't-
you can just leave it at the end.
I
Yeah.
created my own that says inspector's comments.
Yeah,
nice.
what were you going to say, Brian?
I use the overview statement when I'm doing seller procured inspections. So it's right there at the top on the front that I use what you call the Windermere note.
Mm-hmm.
I augmented that a little bit and I use it in the overview. So it's right there in bold.
Yeah, the overview can be really powerful. I think that's a great call, Brian, for the seller inspections. And I like being able to summarize everything, but they're a pain to write, so it's a regional thing. Everybody does it differently, but
And if you leave it blank, it just won't show up.
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, we've hit a 2-hour limit, Jeff. You've been
Yes.
so generous with your time.
Oh no, this is fun.
Yeah,
This is
it
fun.
really
Thank
is
you.
fun. And it's super cool to me, like how a template review is like a little mini CE class. I mean, you could go dive deeper into things. It's an interesting opportunity to think about all the little gray areas that we kind of have to wiggle ourselves into and out of every day. So
I'm sure Jeff could go another 2 hours.
yeah,
Oh,
we could
easy.
easily go another 2 hours. Yeah, I can't. I gotta go. And I think 2 hours is good for this, but we could do
Yes.
another one. I mean, we could go deeper. And I mean, another fun thing to do if we revisit this, Jeff, was be to actually write a report, like have some pictures from a job and let's, like start putting a report together. So maybe we could do part 2 on this quite easily. So how fun. And please reach out, guys. It's so nice having you all here. Let us know if we can help with your templates. I mean, we're struggling and doing what we can to help everybody, but you see how powerful this is. It's a really good example of what a creative, powerful tool this is. And it is a lot of work building this stuff. There's no two ways about it, but really nice and clean and detailed, Jeff. Love it. That was great to see.
I do think that if we end up with something for each state, that would be huge.
Oh,
Something that people could just be, here's what you should be using for that state.
yeah. Can I get a hallelujah and an amen? That would be great.
I'm with you on that.
And when are you doing New York, Jeff?
Yeah.
Hey, this is not actually, if the weather's similar and New York and Chicago are not that different, there's very few differences between these templates in terms of the actual comments. The big differences in the fields.
Yeah.
So it is definitely doable to make a New York template using their SOP.
Yeah, I looked at your temperature. You're pretty close. We're 33 today.
Yep.
Yeah,
No,
you guys are really similar climate zones. I mean, you're pretty close there.
All of my insulation and ventilation stuff would be useless for Hawaii and Florida and Texas, right? But any climate that's similar, the actual comments are not that different. It's just the fields.
Nothing works in Florida, by the way.
Yeah, Texas is weird too.
Including Floridians.
and by the way, everything works in Hawaii from my perspective. Just doesn't matter, right? Anyway, fun guys. Well, what a great time seeing everybody, and we definitely need a Florida template. And hopefully we'll see you guys next time. Thanks for chiming in and stay in touch.
Thank you for doing this, Dylan. I really appreciate it.
All right. Cheers, everyone. Thanks.
Say goodbye.
Oh, bye.
Bye-bye.
Have a good night.
Good night, everybody.
Oh, that's great. Great timing, Jeff. I'm kind of losing my voice. I was trying to chime in so that you didn't have. It's always hard doing the Zooms when you feel like it's a monologue. So I think it was fun where we got some dialogue going.
I really appreciate. There was a lot of times when I was talking about stuff and it probably wasn't clear, and then you were helping with like, this is what a field is. This is what a
yeah. I know it but that's why it's nice to do it together. It's like you can give perspective and stuff. So I think it was fabulous. Cool. What you've done some gorgeous work, man. I mean,
thanks.
We should just talk about what to do with it all. I my template's just a disaster. My template, I never had a chance to build a template really with all these tools.
Right.
Mine, let's see, I'm trying to stop. I want to stop the recording.